Hi there, everybody. How's the day going for you? I hope it's going well. And today I've got, as the title implies, a comment or a quote about perfectionism. This comes from an American novelist named Anne Lamott. Never read anything about her, but I just happened to find the quote somewhere along the line and just found the quote really important for most people. It's a part of something else, and I only have one small segment, so I have no idea what else she was writing in conjunction with this. But the comment she made was perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, which might seem to be a little strange because people, and especially in this culture, are taught to aim to be perfect. We want to do things well and we want to make things good. But doing things well and doing things good is not the same thing as doing them perfectly. The idea of being perfect is a goal that we can't really achieve. Nothing is ever going to be really perfect, is it? Really? Isn't there always going to be somebody who can do something better than you can? If you do something well, isn't there somebody who's going to do something better? I get sort of like surprised or puzzled, I guess is a better choice of words, for people who try to do things perfectly with housekeeping, for example. It's like you're going to have to come back and do it again. I mean, how do you perfectly clean the floors? Because it's going to have to be done again. So why bother to make it perfect? Or, you're going to do something perfectly decorated and then you'll see something else and you want to change it. And even if you have something perfectly decorated and you like it today, are you still going to like it a year, 2 years from now? Or are you going to have your taste change and you're going to want to do something differently? Now, the oppressor part to it is from the standpoint that when people feel as if they have to be perfect, they've got this stress about thinking that they can't make any mistakes, that they can't do any failures. And then that's where it becomes somewhat oppressive. If you think in terms of, say, children, I mean, imagine what it would be like to grow up, and maybe you may know, possibly you have been in a situation like this, so you may know. And I'm going to guess if you do know, you realize it is not a really fun thing to do. But imagine what it's like with children to grow up thinking that they can't do anything, they can't play, they can't do anything unless it's perfectly done. They can't draw a perfect picture. They can't do something perfectly with Legos. They can't do anything unless it's perfect. You're really going to sort of disrupt a lot of childish egos and make them really unhappy because they know that they can never get to that particular point. And maybe something like that happened to you. How many of your dreams and your goals are you not doing? Because the other quote and the question I've got for you really is, have you stopped aiming for a goal because you outgrew it or you're no longer interested? Or have you stopped aiming for a goal because you realized you couldn't make it perfect? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, you want to go to school and you're going to go to college and you're going to get straight A's. And then you get into college and discover that straight A's is not something you can do. Are you going to give up college because you can't do straight A's? If you want to sing or write or play an instrument or engage in a sport, are you going to do it only if you can be perfect and win all the awards? I mean, what are you going to stop doing if you discover that you can't be perfect? And so, therefore, if you think about it, the idea that you have to do things perfectly becomes an oppressor because you ruin, in a sense, the fun you could have, the enthusiasm you could have, the enjoyment you could have out of a particular task because all of your focus is aimed toward trying to be perfect at something. Does that make sense? Now, the other part, in a sense, is when you're doing a task, like you're writing a paper for school or for work or some such thing like that. I want to mention something called the Pareto rule or the 80-20 rule, which basically says that 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the results. It sounds a little weird, but until you stop to think about it, in most of things in our lives, whatever you're doing, your biggest problems are going to come from a small segment of whatever it is. Like if you're cleaning a house, there's going to be one small segment of something that's really the thing that takes you the hardest, the most time, and is the hardest thing for you to do. When it comes to cooking, it's going to be sort of like maybe perhaps the preparation is going to be 80% of your time, but the actual cooking is not. When you're writing a paper, the research perhaps maybe most of the time, and the actual writing may not. Now, the writing and for you may be the biggest part of it, and the research may be simple. But whatever it is, in just about everything we do, the largest percentage of our time and problems and efforts are only 20% of the problem. So let's just say you've got a task and you're working on that task and you get 80% of it done and you're quite fine with it. So do you want to spend the rest of your time trying to improve that to be a 90% great or 100% great? because how much of your time are you spending for a relatively small increment in improvement? So you get to be 90% perfect on something. How much of your time do you want to go up to make it, 95 or even 100? So you're looking for spending a lot of time over a relatively small bit of improvement. Does this make sense? Do you see where I'm coming from? So if you've got, say, like 90%, are you going to spend 3 hours trying to get it over 90%? Or are you going to say, okay, 90% is good enough, and I'm going to go play with my kids, I'm going to go take a nap, I'm going to go exercise or read a book or whatever it is that makes you comfortable and have fun? So that when you're trying to make things perfect, you're in a sense not doing well with your time management, because most of your time is going to go forward using the Pareto principle for something that's relatively small and incrementally better. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you think in terms that in many cases, the phrase I've heard a lot is done is better than perfect. Now, there's a limit to that. You don't want to just sort of like if you're doing something for school, you don't want to just say, okay, I've got a paper done and not pay attention to whether it's written well or anything else like that. So you've got some kind of leeway in there of figuring out how well does done have to be, and that's going to depend on whatever it is you're doing. But just think about the fact that when you're aiming for perfection, isn't that somewhat of a hard taskmaster? Isn't that in a sense a slight slave driver? And is it really worth your time and effort to try and be perfect for everything you do, or even just some of the things you do? And the question I have again for you is, what do you get out of it? Because once you're perfect, then you have to do it again, don't you? And then you get that additional stress of having to do it again. You've done it once and now you have to repeat it. And then now you have to repeat it. So let's just say you do something perfectly twice. An Olympic athlete, you get a 10 once. Then think of all the stress of having to think about needing to get the 10 again and again and again. And is that what you want? So I thought I'd just toss those ideas out today and for you to think about during this week. Hopefully you'll recognize that doing something really good, maybe a 90%, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be 100%, and it's just satisfactory, because you may want to consider, why are you trying to give into your oppressor essentially and make it 100% when you probably won't going to do that anyway. Okay? So I hope you found this helpful. If you know somebody else who might find it helpful, maybe somebody you know who's a perfectionist, you might want to ask them to take a look at it and let me know what you think about it, whether or not you did find it helpful. I would really appreciate your feedback on this. So I hope you have a good day, and I hope you have a really good week and things are working out and you're going to have a good summer wherever you are. So here's Valerie out. Bye.